Hi, I am poet and writer Kay Spivey, and today I am responding to a Booktube community tag, the Booktube community tag. I was tagged by the amazing Shelley Flowers Reads and Writes. Thank you so much for tagging me. I want to start this off by responding, as I didn't in your comments, I'm so sorry, to her question at the end of her video with this, because I am a Ravenclaw. And I was known as a Ravenclaw even before ever taking any of the tests. That was the house that seemed to speak most to me, and I've always been fairly proud of being a Ravenclaw. The thing I want to talk about today before I get into the tag at all, and I made myself some notes because there are a lot of things I want to say. This has nothing to do with Shelley Flowers at all. Obviously her video was awesome and Harry Potter has been a big part of all of our lives. There are very few booktubers for whom Harry Potter wasn't a pretty formative part of your childhood. It wasn't like the book that got me into reading or anything. I do remember reading articles where they talked about how Harry Potter had completely changed literature for most children, that it is the thing that got thousands, probably millions of kids into reading for the first time, that it changed the way kids approached books. And it was one of the first things doing that. It was one of the big things at the time. Like at the time, there were so many like think pieces on Harry Potter, and then Gilmore Girls was the other one that was like really getting people into reading. Do you mind? I closed the blinds and the cats are like, gotta get behind those blinds suddenly, even though we don't care about this window. So much has been happening, especially in June. And one of the worst ways to just compound this for a single person to decide to do, I mean, it's not the worst. Obviously, Trump is trying to top it every moment of his life. But J.K. Rowling very publicly doubled down on being a TERF, which is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, which is people who pretend like they're feminists but don't think trans people count as people. The evidence has been there and people have been pointing it out, and I feel like I've been in denial about J.K. Rowling for a really long time, and so I want to start off by talking about that. I didn't have exactly the same reaction to Harry Potter as everyone else did. I loved reading the books. I think I started reading them on my own about when the fourth book came out. My dad read the first three to me, and then I started kind of reading the next ones, and I remember, you know, as the books were coming out, going to midnight releases and then trying to beat my mom, who is a crazy fast reader, at reading to the end of the book first, and she's also very competitive, and I never won. I have so many memories. I have memories of, you know, getting to be out at midnight to go to these releases and all the people dressed up and getting to go to midnight showings, and that was like such a big thing, and so much of my friend group was so into all of this, and I loved the books. I mean, I loved reading them. And I remember when the fifth book came out, and I had to finish reading The Return of the King because I was a Lord of the Rings nerd. Another series with, you know, problems. J.R.R. Tolkien not thinking of women as being people and being dead and long dead is very different from J.K. Rowling not seeing trans women as women and living today in the age of technology. Like, what would J.R.R. Tolkien have done if he had access to the internet? We don't know. But unfortunately, we do know what J.K. Rowling would do, which is to decide to double down on being a TERF. Time and time again. I just want to get all the memories out because I had to when the fifth Harry Potter book came out. Yes, let's go back to that story. I had to finish The Return of the King first, and I did finish that. And then my cousin and I, she came down to Arizona where I lived, and we spent the summer lying on the bed, like the two of us, just reading the book and like racing to the end. And like I whizzed past her at one point and then didn't realize that, spoiler alert, Sirius had died, and then she was like bawling, and I was like, what happened? And I had to go back and reread. Like, I have such like clear memories of reading these books, and just how many interactions in my life have been based upon Harry Potter. Like, it's been such a cultural phenomenon, the kind of which like the Hunger Games didn't quite hit the same mark. Like, you know, it became so ingrained. To some extent, I always felt like people got obsessed in a weird way. Like, people needed it to be alive, and I never quite understood like the need to possess a universe in order for it to have been real to you. Like, to me, I read the books and I loved them, and I was like, that's great, and I didn't need for the world to be real. Like, I didn't need for there to be Hogwarts. Like, yeah, it's fun to wait for your Hogwarts letter, but like I wasn't waiting for it. Like, I understood it was a book. And I feel like that's not the case with most people. Most people like I'm not the type where I need to know every single thing. I know I did that for The Lord of the Rings. I wanted to consume all of the information. I never wanted to leave it. But it didn't have to then continue beyond all of the information in order for it to be real to me. I didn't have to be the expert on every single thing and possess the universe and project myself into it in order for it to be real to me. Most people do need those things. And I think that was part of why Harry Potter hit people in such a way. Like, I think I'm psychoanalyzing these books now. I'm so sorry if this is boring to you. I understand completely. Because it was such a big part of everyone's life. I think I also wanted to forgive or oversee a lot of the things J.K. Rowling was talking about. Like, things that were just in the book. I always was like, y'all are looking too far into this. Like, that was kind of the disconnect I had, where I was like, people who would point out all of these different like flawed things in the book, and I'd be like, it's a book. You can only say so many things in a book, even in 7 monstrous volumes. And let me tell you, some of those, like, you could build a house, they're so big. Even in books that long and that well thought out and that many, like, you can only say so much. There are plenty of things that we left out. There are plenty of things that would never have occurred to a single person to write into them that would definitely have occurred to someone with totally different experiences. Like, I got all of that, and I was on J.K. Rowling's side about a lot of those things, where people would be like, but shouldn't she have mentioned this? Like, isn't this a dangerous thing to be saying? And I was like, it's a book. But in the end, those people were right, because she just kept doing it. You know, I think I always thought, like, some of it is just ignorance. Like, the things she did with kind of bringing the magical community over to the States. Like, you know, you'd think, though, she's like one school for the entire country. And we're like, that doesn't make any sense. And she'd be like, you know what? I forgot about this other one, or something like that. She could have made it cute, but she always was just like, no, impossible. This is the way it is. I'm the only expert. And you're like, yeah, you are the only expert, but you've made this everyone's. You've made this universe expand so far. And also things like her awful treatment of Native American communities. And in my head I was like, okay, she's English. She didn't grow up around these communities. Like, you know, what's Stephanie Meyer's excuse? That girl's from Phoenix. Phoenix is like 40% Mexican, 40% Native American, 20% white retirees. You know, like, what was her excuse for the way that she treated the tribes? Totally different. She had firsthand experience J.K. Rowling had none. I was like, okay. But she also refused to learn. Like, she had access to that learning. She had people telling her, hey, these things are wrong. And people very generously being like, here's ways to fix it. And she just never would. She never did. She always wanted to double down on things. And, oh, come here, before you knock over the camera, how about you just sit? She keeps doubling down on things that are very harmful. The way she talked about Nagini, people were saying, hey, this seems like a problem. It was a problem. And I feel like I just kept on thinking, no, she's gonna learn, she's gonna do better. And I have to stop. This is the way she wants to be seen. It's not a lack of information. She has plenty of information. It's not a lack of worldly experience. Like, she's got it. She's got all of that. And she insists on saying these things and on having these belief systems. And in a time when we're all very focused on Black Lives Matters, because Black lives absolutely matter, and these protests are important, we can't let her skate by making life so much more difficult for trans people when she could have said nothing. Easily, she could have said nothing. And she chose not only to say something and then really not apologize. I mean, one line, I'm so sorry, and then a whole letter of, I'm not sorry at all, basically. That's not acceptable. That's her doubling down on it. And TERF is not a slur word. It is a description. Like Nazi is a description. If you hold the belief system of something and someone uses the descriptive term, like if you feel like people who have a different skin color to you are lesser than you, you are racist. That is not a slur. It is a description of how you've chosen to be. Yeah, if I dress up in a clown suit and you call me a clown, you're not using a slur. I mean, I don't know. A slur is something where you call someone a name in order to dehumanize them for something that they can't help, like the color of their skin or being born in the wrong body. Like, there is a thing, I do think people do think of transgender in completely the wrong way. So many people are like, no, this is a man changing into a woman. Like, no, 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 no. You don't understand. This is a woman, just like you're a woman, possibly. Maybe you're a man. Probably not. This is Booktube. Let's just be honest. But let's say, like, me to J.K. Rowling. We're both women. And if you had been born in a body that presented as a male body, that wouldn't make you not a woman. Like, and if you wanted to then present as a woman, instead of trying to fit in and being like, oh yeah, I'm totally a guy because of this body, why is that bad? Isn't it worse to be like, oh yeah, totally I'm a guy because of my penis? Like, if you're not a guy, then you're not a guy, you know? Like, I don't know why people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so freaked out that there's a transgender woman in the bathroom. You're like, but I do feel like a lot of people don't see it that way. They see it as a person fully identifying as one way, changing into fully identifying as another. Like, they don't see what transgender is. I don't know. Like, I don't know where, I should know where it comes from. It comes from just deeply held prejudices and media. This is gonna be a very long video because I have to get all of this out before I can get into the tag. I'm not okay with J.K. Rowling anymore. Like, I loved Harry Potter. Like I said, I'm so proud of being a Ravenclaw. I wore my Ravenclaw shirt because I wanted to show you, like, Harry Potter has meant a lot of things to a lot of people, and I deeply feel that the things that you loved before you knew anything about the creator being problematic, if you grew up loving Harry Potter and it teaching you that books were great and you wanting to get your Hogwarts letter and it just being such a deep part of your identity, you get to keep that. You get to keep that love and that nostalgia and that experience of it. That's yours forever. But now that you know that J.K. Rowling does not believe that trans women are women, even though trans women are women and trans men are men, and you not being able to wrap your head around that is not any of those people's problem. That is a you problem, and you problem alone, and you really need to sit and internalize why that wigs you out so much. You get to keep the love you had, but it is your responsibility now, as someone who is now educated and now informed, to cease support of someone who willfully and time again doubles down on being a horrible person. And I think Shelley Flowers had talked about this actually in another video, which is why this is like really kind of fresh in my mind. I think her Booktube community tag might have been an older one. I'm watching things out of order recently, I'm so sorry. But she talked about, I believe she talked about Alice Walker. And it was sort of like, what do you do with these figures who were so impactful? And J.K. Rowling is undoubtedly impactful just for the phenomenon that was Harry Potter and how it shaped our culture. And if you're younger than, like, if you weren't born in the 90s, if you weren't part of like the growing into the entire series, or like you weren't going to the midnight releases, like if you don't remember that, it was quite the thing. Like, it really shaped an entire generation in a pretty intense and meaningful way. And there are a lot of people throughout history who had that kind of impact, or like totally changed an entire movement, or totally changed, I don't know, or even just had really great work. And how do you navigate that? And I think you need to think critically, and I think you can talk about these people's amazing successes. Like, there's a reason we're still reading them, or watching them, or loving them. You can discuss the huge, monumental impact they made to everything that came after, and how it was maybe been revolutionary at the time that they made it. You have a responsibility to also talk about the bad things, and that this is not a person that we're putting up on a pedestal. They did this thing, and in isolation, that thing was monumental. And they also were beating their wife and children on the side. They also were extremely anti-Semitic. They also were extremely racist. Like, they also didn't believe that trans women were women. Like, they're things, and I feel like we must learn them together. that we can't just be like, oh, this person doesn't exist. Clearly they impacted history in a meaningful way. But we have to take the responsibility to say, they also did these things and they were very harmful. And J.K. Rowling doubling down on trans women not being women, her doing that is impacting trans people, is putting them in danger, is turning people against them who otherwise may not have been. It's a horrible thing to have done. So TLDR, J.K. Rowling is cancelled. Because I stand by trans women and trans men, the whole transgender community. You are valid, your identity is valid, and no one, especially someone who could have just sat back and been like, hey, I've got all this money from shaping your childhood, I'm good, could have just not insulted you and could have not put you in danger in that way. And she chose to, and I'm so sorry, and I stand by you and all of that. And so let's get on to the Booktube community tag. Yay! Do you think this is how we were going to spend this? Because I did. My little flashy thing is flashing, and luckily this is not a long tag, so I think I can get through it, but we'll see. If it dies, maybe I'll just film the rest of this in the morning. But anyway, what's my name? My name is Case Spivey. It is a pen name. Where am I from? I'm originally from Colorado, United States, and I live up in Washington now. Pets. I have two boys. They are kitties. They're very cute. I'm sure you already saw them in this video. I think Zuko's tail passed by and Pi has made an appearance. So most binge-worthy Netflix show. I live for the Great British Baking Show when it comes on. I mean, now they're doing like episodic. I'm not for that. I need to lie down on a bad day, not move from the couch, and just watch as much wonderful, heartwarming baking as possible. That is my jam. Instant buy author. You know, who did I instant buy? I instant bought The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern recently. For a while there, I was instant buying Cassandra Clare. I don't know who else I would be instant buying. Sarah Kay is definitely on that list. Hobbies besides books. I play video games. Did you hear about me playing Fire Emblem? Well, it's moved on. We're playing Animal Crossing now. You want to come and join me on my island? Because we could be friends. I'd be happy to like host a day for you to come over. My island is not finished yet. I've only had the game for a month, so it's a work in progress, but like I'd be totally happy to host people coming over if you also have Animal Crossing and you're interested. That's all I'm doing with my free time anymore. Random fact that most people don't know about me. I published my first poem when I was in the 6th grade. In my elementary school, they actually, the like lower, like I think it was like the 3rd or 4th graders, put on a play based on the poem. It was really cute. It was such a cute poem. It was like, I think it was called A World of Dreams. And it was like, a sugar maiden house, bright candy castle, a loving willow tree, this is a world of dreams. And it went on from there. That's the only part I still remember. That's random, right? Favorite bookish nerdy swag. And this, I think, is why I wore this shirt. Because obviously a lot of it is Harry Potter. But you know what else I've got? I have these Shadowhunters tarot cards. Cassandra Clare is not also without her controversies. It apparently got chewed at some point, but I've got these beautiful Shadowhunters tarot cards. This is not the deck I normally use. I'm just not very well acquainted with this deck still. So if I do any tarot, I do a lot of tarot. It's just for me. But my tarot deck, I have the Thoth deck. And this deck just likes to scream at me. One of these days, I need to tell you a story that I had to tweet to a friend as it was happening, because it was my deck was like screaming at me. It was the weirdest thing I have ever done in my life. I will tell that story another time since the battery is running low. And this video is gonna be way too long for the length of this tag. One book or series you love but no one talks about. The Perilous Guard was like the first thing that came to mind. That book is just incredible. If you like fairies, if you like medieval romance, if you like strong female characters, interesting looks into like psychology, like all kinds of interesting stuff in The Perilous Guard by Elizabeth Marie Pope, I believe is the name. I can't see it from here. That book was like so good and people do not talk about it ever. I'm the only person I know, except for the people who I've made read it, who also loved it, who talk about that. So let's use that one because it's coming to mind right away. Obviously, poetry books people do not talk enough about. Like, I could just pull out plenty, but like the thing is blinking at me. We're going through this quick. Okay, I had to charge the camera a little bit anyway, so let's just wrap this up really quick with recent booktubers I've been following. Shelley Flowers reads and writes, LaSalle Sambury, author J.C. Carpenter, author Morgan Lee. Those are all author tubers. A booktuber I've recently started following is The Artisan Geek. And then for tagging, obviously, I don't know who all is going to be watching this video. If you're watching, you're totally tagged. If you want to do this and maybe make this a little more booktubey than authortubey, which I am sure I've already made it. But Rebecca Rodriguez, if you are watching this, I would love to see your video of the booktube community, and perhaps it'll be less controversial than mine at the beginning. It shouldn't be controversial though to be like, hey, trans lives matter, Black Lives Matter, like, let's get with this century and let's fight back. And I want to go ahead and leave some links down below. I'll find some more petitions that are going around, and I will leave some links of things that can help not only with the trans community and the LGBT plus Q plus community, but also with the Black Lives Matter protests and movements that are going on right now, that is desperately important that we don't just forget about, that we continue to support. And stay safe, stay well, and fight hard. Okay, bye.